Hi there, welcome to a video that I hope is going to be relatively short and sharp and to the point. Some time ago I looked at the annunciator panel for the Honeycomb throttle quadrant and realised there was a bug in the software that supports the annunciator panel, and it was to do with the low voltage warning coming up. I'll link to the original video if you want to go back and look at that, either in the description, or I'll make a card pop up at the top if I remember how to do that. So if I just recap and to explain what the bug was, let's get into the cockpit. Now I'm going to put my camera up here so you can actually see the annunciator panel. You can see the light I'm talking about. Just the low voltage one there, and I was working on the 172 and realized that the light wasn't functioning, wasn't going on and off as needed. So I had to dig in at the, let's bring the file in here, in the community folder, and in my previous video I showed how you install it, but it's dead easy. But it's the AFC bridge is the piece of software, and in the AFC bridge, in the binaries folder, the bin folder, the file that gets distributed, the one that works, has got to be called this, the throttle config. So what I did was I made a copy of that, so I've kept a copy and I edited the file. So if we look back at the original version as it was written, if I use this piece of software, it's Notepad Plus is the piece of software that I use. It's a slightly advanced version of the Notepad. You can do this in Notepad, but I like this because it's got the tabs at the top. The original version said that the light will come on if the value of electrical main bus amps was 0. And actually, if you watch, let's just push that out of the way. If I watch the lots of windows open to show you this. If you watch the variables, there's the one that we were talking about, the electrical main bus amps. That at the moment the alternator's on, so it's positive. If I turn the alternator off, it goes negative. So it never actually goes to 0. So that was where the bug was. It was saying it would only function when it was equal to 0. So I used Notepad, edited it, and instead of it being 0, I made it less than 0. As soon as it goes to negative, then it switched the lights on, and that worked fine for the 172. So you could see the lights going on and off quite happily. I then started working on a different aircraft, the 152. I sort of backtracked a little bit, and if you look at the aircraft selector here, let's go into the 152. And that's the one I'm developing at the moment. I'm using a particular livery to do the development. It didn't work for that one, and so what I did was I put in all of the different variables that I could find to have a look at and keep my eye on, and we switched. This is the one we were originally working with, the main bus amps. If I turn the alternator off, it begins to drop, but it's not really dramatic. Switch the alternator back on again, it's hardly making any difference. So it's not that variable we should be watching. So I kept my eye out for which variable would actually change. Oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, you can save the list and load the list. If you're doing this sort of work over a number of different aircraft, taking some time over it, save the list of variables. You can always load them back in later, so you don't have to go hunting down all the variables. It's a much easier way of working. Anyway, as I was saying, watch this one here. If I turn the alternator off, it's draining the battery. It's pushing the current out. If I turn the alternator back on, it's now charging the battery. So this looks like a much more fruitful variable to keep your eye on. The other one that changes dramatically is the battery load, and in fact I think it's the same function really. The numbers are absolutely equal, but the other voltages don't really change. So what I did was went back into my Notepad, if I bring that into place, and you can go away now. I wrote that again, so I've now changed that to the electrical battery bus amps. That's what I'm looking at now, and now I want it to come on if it's greater than 0. If it's positive, that positive means it's draining the battery, it's actually pushing the current out. If it's negative, it's charging the battery. So I've just changed that value here. So 2 changes. It's still byte index 4, bit index 2. That's the bulb we're trying to light up. Looking at a completely different variable now, the electrical bus battery amps, and if it's greater than 0, that should turn the light off. When it's less than 0, it goes negative. So the alternator is on, light's gone off, alternator off, and that works if I switch back to my 172. Let's drop back into the aircraft there, and again watch the variables. So again, here's the battery bus amps. It's not quite so dramatic, the actual figures. That's the alternator off, and there's the alternator on. So it draws a lot of current from it, but it doesn't actually push a lot of current back in. But it's definitely going positive and negative. If you push the throttle up, if I give it more throttle, you can see that it's charged the battery a bit better. So actually it's interesting to see that there'll be quite a slow recharge on the 172 in comparison. But that still works for the annunciator. If I turn the alternator off, the light comes on. So it seems a more logical one to monitor, actually, rather than the main bus amps. Actually look at what's going on in the battery. So that's it really. Just that, if I bring that notepad back in again, and that can go away now. It's that one there. It's changing. It's almost at the very end of the file. Byte index 4, bit index 2, and changing it to those values there. So I'll leave those on the screen for a few minutes for you. And you can I think it seems to work for most of the other aircraft I've had a quick look at. Quite a few of the other aircraft. If you turn things off, it turns off the entire current to the electrical system, so the annunciator panel just goes out anyway. So this is one of those aircraft where the electricity will still flow, but it will flow from the battery if your alternator fails for some reason. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.